what's up you guys, the Curious Owl here, and today my book review is going to be on the book 4 by Veronica Roth. This is essentially the prequel to Divergent, as this goes into the story of 4, 2 years before Triss has her choosing ceremony. It follows him when he becomes a transfer from Abnegation to Dauntless, his time as an initiate in the Dauntless faction as he's going through the first couple of weeks of initiation, and later after he has met Triss and starts to change the way he thinks about how he views Dauntless and essentially becomes a traitor to the Dauntless faction. So like I said, this consists of several short stories. There are 3 main ones and then a collection of some smaller pieces that are also like little bonus stories about things that involve Triss, like when he first meets her and all of this stuff. It's a really cool story because in Allegiant, as I had said in my book review for that, we were able to see a lot of For's perspective for the first time that we had not seen in the first 2 novels in the trilogy. And as this novel is purely from For's perspective, and we see everything from his relationship with his father before the choosing ceremony to how he fares in his initiation trials and things of that nature, it's really eye-opening because you see how things were very different for For in his initiation as opposed to Triss, and you see how those things change after For goes through his initiation and starts to have his own career in Dauntless and things of that nature. It's very much a better insight into how things used to be run before Janine Matthews starts to take over the Dauntless faction with the Erudites and starts to implement the experiments that are going to essentially start getting people to be put under simulations of control. One of the things I absolutely loved about this book is just purely the fact that I get to see something from For's perspective, because I loved that so much in Allegiant that I wish that would have been incorporated more in the first 2 novels. There's even a bit of a preface in the beginning of this book where Veronica Roth talks about how she had at first wanted to create the story from For's perspective, but after about 30 pages or so, it wasn't really seeming to go anywhere. And I think that that would have been challenged if she would have actually stuck with it and did something more along the lines of what she did with Allegiant. I definitely think Divergent would have been a lot better to see both of the perspectives, but as the first novel is usually setting up the world and setting up the situation, it may have been a little confusing going back and forth between the 2, especially since For is 2 years older than Triss, and we'd have to know a lot of his backstory within probably his first chapter. So I see the problem with having had the 2 perspectives in Divergent, but I still think it may have worked. But I am very glad to see that she did decide to come out with a prequel novel that does delve into his thoughts and experiences going through his own choosing ceremony, his own fear landscapes, and a lot of the information of things when he's involved with Triss that we would not have gotten to see had it not been written, basically. Everything in Divergent and Insurgent is from Triss's perspective. We only see her perspective, and so it's really cool to see how a lot of the things in Divergent specifically was seen through For's eyes in very specific events. And if you've read the first book, Divergent, you could pretty much read this right afterwards, because most of the stuff that's in here only deals with stuff that was about in Divergent. It doesn't go into anything about what happens in Insurgent or Allegiant. This purely follows more of the storyline with Divergent when it comes to after For has met Triss, and I really enjoy that because I feel like that if there would have been more story going into things like Insurgent and Allegiant, it would have been a little too much, just because it would have pretty much been the same thing as what Triss would have seen or something like that. But at least with Insurgent, we would have been able to see kind of more his perspective on situations that he was having difficulties with expressing to Triss in those moments. But I don't think that it would have really sufficed to be in this book specifically. I couldn't really think of any negative remarks about this novel because honestly, I really enjoyed it, and I feel like it's difficult to judge a prequel in terms of its stance among the rest of a series because unfortunately the prequels usually do a lot with building background, and I think the only thing that would deter me from something is if I didn't feel satisfied with the background information that was in the prequel that essentially helps to understand the rest of the series. And thankfully this novel, this prequel, was very satisfactory in the background information. It gave me a lot of good information that I had been questioning about in the trilogy that I feel was answered, and it gave me a lot more perspective into the idea of what 4 was thinking just before he met Triss, and kind of where his stance was before he even met Triss and had decided to try to overthrow the Erudite. That's pretty much all of the comments that I had in terms of 4. I really enjoyed it. I didn't find any negative things about it that I feel like I needed to address. I think that it's honestly one of the better prequels, like I said, out of all the prequels I've read for series, and obviously I gave it 5 out of 5 stars because I just adored it. I ate through the book. It was a really fast read too, and I just really loved seeing everything from 4's perspective for the first time other than in Allegiant. We really get to know a lot about him and get to know a lot about his thoughts and feelings about certain things. We get to really see his feelings about when he meets Triss for the first time and gets to know her and goes through her initiation and things of that nature. It was just very heartwarming to see, but also just really interesting to see his thought processes. Thank you guys so much for joining me in this video. If you guys did enjoy it, please do give it a big thumbs up. And if you're not already and you'd like to be, hit that button down below and subscribe to become an owlet in our flock. And I will see all of you guys in my next video. Bye, guys.